Sabrina Carpenter was answering emails when her ex's rant flashed across her screen, painting her as a woman who married him for money. By lunchtime, HR was asking for a meeting, and her tax files had vanished from their old place. If you've ever been smeared like that, share your story in the comments. Her phone buzzed, then kept buzzing. Notifications stacked up. Coworkers, an aunt, a college friend she hadn't heard from since the wedding. The same tag repeated over and over. She stopped near the copy room and opened the first alert. Ethan Caldwell had posted a wedding photo. Sabrina laughing, Ethan grinning, champagne in the air. His caption was blunt. He said he'd been used, that he'd paid for everything, and that his ex-wife had married him for money. He didn't type her name, but the comments did it for him. A woman from Risk walked past, glanced at Sabrina's screen, and abruptly looked away. Two analysts who'd been joking a second earlier went silent and drifted off. Another vibration. An email from HR. No subject. Can you stop by my office for 5 minutes? No context, just a time slot dropped onto her calendar. Her calendar accepted the invite before she could decline, like even software wanted her to explain herself. Sabrina sat at her desk and documented what she could. She took screenshots of the post, the timestamp, and the first wave of comments. She forwarded the HR email to her personal address, grabbed her bag, and headed for the elevators. A bank notification flashed from the old joint account they were still unwinding. Contact information updated. 2:13 a.m. Sabrina stared at the time, then tapped the screen awake again, as if it might correct itself. In the garage, she unlocked her car, and a FaceTime request popped up. Ethan's face filled the screen, confident and calm. Hey, don't do this the hard way. Get to the point, Sabrina said. Sign the papers, I'll delete the post. 72 hours. Don't make it a thing. He said it like he was offering terms, not a threat. Sabrina ended the call without answering. She slid the phone into her bag and drove home with both hands on the wheel. In her apartment, she went straight to the closet shelf where she kept the folder she'd promised herself would stay intact. The envelope with tax returns and investment statements was gone. On the wood sat a bent binder clip, still squeezed shut, holding nothing. She stepped into the hallway and looked up at the building camera above the elevator. A printed notice was taped beside it. Maintenance. The date matched the day she'd moved out. Sabrina opened her messages and typed one line to Ethan. You always liked telling the story your way. She hit send. On Ethan's post, his family group chat reacted in real time, laughing and piling on. The elevator doors opened. Sabrina stepped in, thumb hovering over her banking app. As the doors slid toward each other, a new alert appeared. Your account was signed in from a new device. She pressed call, and the line started ringing as the doors sealed shut. Sabrina got to the office before most of the elevators warmed up for the day. She expected the usual hum of early work. One person printing, another reheating oatmeal. But the first thing she noticed was her desk. It wasn't where she'd left it. Her monitor and docking station had been relocated to a corner near a supply cabinet, the kind of spot reserved for temps and people who were leaving soon. A small note sat beside the keyboard. Facilities completed your move per management request. No signature. When coworkers trickled in, they didn't stop at her desk the way they normally did. A few offered polite nods and kept walking, like acknowledging her for too long might attach them to her problem. Sabrina logged in, opened her inbox, and started working through the overnight queue with the same rhythm she always used. At 8:17, 2 calendar alerts disappeared. The first was a vendor check-in she'd had on the books for weeks. The second was a client call she'd been preparing for since Monday. A minute later, an email came in with a perfectly courteous subject line. Schedule update. Hi, Sabrina. We're going to pause our meeting for now. We'd like to avoid any unnecessary noise. Thanks for understanding. She stared at the phrase, unnecessary noise, then archived the message and flagged it anyway. Another cancellation followed, then another, all written in that same careful tone people use when they want to sound reasonable while they step away. A coworker from data governance stopped near her new desk, leaning on the cabinet like it belonged to him. So, he said, and smiled like he was trying to be friendly. Do you have a marriage strategy too? Sabrina kept her eyes on her screen. I have an email saving strategy. His smile thinned, and he wandered off, suddenly interested in his phone. Sabrina didn't look up to watch him go. She finished 2 compliance reviews, answered 3 routine questions, and waited for the HR meeting invite that had landed, without explanation, the day before. The HR conversation was short and polished. They didn't accuse her of anything. They didn't defend her either. They asked if she felt safe. They reminded her about social media policies. They used the phrase reputational risk twice. Sabrina said she understood, took notes, and left with nothing in writing besides a calendar follow-up. On her lunch break, she drove to the bank branch tied to the old joint account. The lobby was bright and busy. She waited, then sat across from a teller who looked young enough to still have college stickers on her water bottle. Sabrina slid her ID across the desk and explained that the account had been altered overnight. The teller tapped at her keyboard, frowned, and tilted the monitor slightly away. "I'm sorry," the teller said. "The account owner updated access." "I'm an owner," Sabrina said. "I'm on the account." The teller checked again, then gave the practiced look of someone who'd already been told what to do. "Not anymore. At this branch, it's restricted." Sabrina kept her voice level. "Then print the changelog. I need the record showing what was updated and when." "I can't provide that at the counter," the teller said. "You'd have to request it through the account holder." Sabrina nodded once, like she'd been given directions to a place she didn't plan to visit. "Who authorized the restriction?" The teller's fingers hesitated above the keys. "I don't have that information." Sabrina took her ID back, thanked her, and walked out before her face could do anything that would be interpreted as a scene. In the parking lot, she sat in her car and called the number Marisol Vega had once handed her after a work function, back when Sabrina had joked she'd never need a paralegal. Marisol answered on the second ring. "Tell me you're calling for something boring." "It stopped being boring yesterday," Sabrina said. They agreed to meet at a small cafe near the Miami-Dade courthouse. Sabrina arrived first, bought black coffee, and chose a table that faced the door without making a point of it. Marisol showed up in flats and a blazer, dropped her bag onto the chair, and looked at Sabrina like she was triaging. Marisol set Sabrina's phone on the table between them, screen up. "Screenshot everything. Save the link. Save the timestamp. Don't fight him online." Sabrina nodded and opened her notes app. Marisol didn't soften her tone. "Do you have copies of your tax returns, statements, anything tied to investments or the business?" "No," Sabrina said. "He took the folder." Marisol's eyebrows lifted once, then settled. "Of course he did." Sabrina pulled up the notification from the bank showing the contact change at 2:13 a.m. Marisol leaned in, read it, and tapped the date with one finger. "Here's what we do," Marisol said. "First, we file an emergency motion to preserve documents in the divorce. He doesn't get to clean house and call it organization." Sabrina kept typing. "Second," Marisol continued, "we get a forensic accountant on standby. Not a regular CPA, someone who follows money the way your team follows compliance." Sabrina closed her notes, then reopened Ethan's post and saved another screenshot, catching new comments as they loaded. Marisol watched the screen without reacting, which somehow made the situation feel more real than any outrage would have. Sabrina's laptop chimed. A new email arrived from an unfamiliar law firm address. The subject line was blunt enough to feel like a shove. Asset disclosure request. She didn't open the attachment in the cafe. Marisol had seen enough emails turn into weapons. Sabrina closed her laptop, paid, and drove to her old building for the pickup window that had been agreed to in writing. At the front desk, the security guard scanned her name and shook his head. "The code was changed." "Ethan told me to change it." Sabrina showed the calendar invite and the text thread confirming the time. The guard glanced, then returned the phone. "I can't let you up without the current code." "He said you'd say that." She stood there long enough for the lobby camera to catch her looking composed, then stepped back toward the glass doors. The elevator dinged behind her. Ethan walked out with a man she didn't recognize, mid-40s, pressed shirt, leather briefcase. Ethan's hand stayed on the man's elbow as if he was guiding him through a tour. They were talking until they saw Sabrina. Then both of them stopped. Ethan's expression didn't change, but his posture did. He angled himself between Sabrina and the elevator bank. The other man stared at the ceiling directory like it had suddenly become fascinating. "Wrong day," Ethan said. "This was the day you confirmed," Sabrina replied. "Talk to my attorney." The briefcase man tightened his grip and took one step back toward the elevators. Ethan held the door button with a finger, still watching Sabrina. "You're making this messy," he said. "You started that," Sabrina said. The doors closed. Sabrina walked to her car, set her bag on the passenger seat, and opened the bank alert from the night before. New device login. She tapped details, then scrolled. The timestamp sat there like a dare. 2:13 a.m. Same date as the maintenance notice she'd seen by the camera after moving out. She pulled up a photo she'd taken of that notice and zoomed on the date. Same. She opened her calendar history and checked the day she'd returned for boxes. That was the day the hallway camera had been down. It wasn't a pattern yet, but it had edges. In the parking lot, Marisol texted a list of 3 names with phone numbers and short notes. One had a glossy website and a line about results you deserve. Another promised discreet recovery. The third was a single page with credentials, a downtown address, and no sales pitch. Sabrina called the third. A receptionist transferred her without small talk. "This is Alan Pierce." "I need a forensic accountant." "I do that." "I have scattered records." "Bring what you have." Before the appointment, Sabrina searched her email for anything tied to Ethan's business. She found an old thread from months ago, a chain of automated notices from accounting software that had accidentally forwarded to their joint inbox when they still shared passwords. The subject lines were clipped and coded. One stood out. INTL-7842, followed by a date and an amount. She printed the chain at work, then stopped at a pharmacy for a cheap folder because she couldn't find the one Ethan had taken. She also printed screenshots of the post, the bank notification, and the HR invite, even though those didn't feel like money yet. Alan Pierce's office sat above a law firm. He didn't offer coffee. He offered a chair and a legal pad. "Tell me what happened." "My ex posted that I married him for money." "He wants leverage," Alan said. "He also changed access on a joint account." "That's the part I can measure." Alan asked for her documents, then for mundane things she wouldn't have thought mattered. "Do you have dates of logins?" "Do you have calendar invites?" "Any auto emails from vendors?" "Receipts, even small ones?" "Anything with a reference number?" Sabrina slid her pile across the desk, papers misaligned, corners bent, some stapled, some not. "I brought evidence that matches my life right now, out of order." Alan didn't smile, but he didn't judge her either. He sorted the stack the way people sort laundry. Fast, methodical, hands never pausing to think about feelings. He circled the bank timestamp, then wrote it again at the top of his pad. He compared it to the HR email time, then to the social post. His pen tapped once, then moved on. He opened the printed accounting thread and ran his finger along the subject codes. "Where did you get this?" "It was forwarded by mistake." "Accidents are useful," Alan said. He leaned closer to the INTL line and underlined the characters after the dash. "This looks like a transfer reference." "If it is," he added, "it's not a domestic account." Sabrina started to ask what that meant, and her phone vibrated against the edge of the desk. A new message from Ethan lit the screen. "Don't play games." Alan slid Sabrina's phone back across the desk. The message from Ethan sat on the screen like a fresh fingerprint. Marisol called as Sabrina walked to her car. "How bad?" "Bad enough that I'm not meeting him alone," Sabrina said. 2 days later, she sat in her divorce attorney's office, a narrow room stacked with banker boxes. Her lawyer, Dana Klein, flipped through a draft request for financial disclosures while Sabrina lined up screenshots, printouts, and a timeline Alan had helped her label. Marisol took the chair beside Sabrina and kicked her heel under the table once, a warning to stay still. Dana set the papers in front of them. "We're asking for full asset disclosure," Dana said. "Business accounts, tax returns, foreign holdings, everything. If he lies, it matters." They were escorted to a mediation suite down the hall. Ethan was already there with his attorney, Paul Reddick, leaning back as if the room belonged to him. He spoke loudly enough for the mediator and the receptionist to hear. "I just want peace for both of us," Ethan said. "I'm not trying to punish anyone." Sabrina kept her face blank and opened her notebook. She wrote the time, then wrote his sentence without quotation marks, the way she wrote compliance notes at work. Paul dropped a printed copy of Ethan's post onto the table, as if the internet needed a paper backup. "This is the harassment we're dealing with," he said. Dana glanced at it once. "It's his post," she said. Ethan shrugged. "I had to defend myself," he said. The mediator, a gray-haired man named Ortiz, reminded them that mediation wasn't a stage. Ethan nodded, then aimed his voice toward the hallway again. "I'm a businessman," he said. "I can't have rumors." People talk, and deals get skittish. The mediator introduced ground rules. Ethan nodded at the right places, then looked at Sabrina like she'd missed an appointment. Paul slid a glossy settlement packet across the table. "Sign today," he said. "This resolves it fast and spares everyone embarrassment." Ethan added a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "If you sign, I'll take down the post," he said. "If you don't, this is going to be a long story." Dana didn't reach for the packet. She placed her own request in the center, stapled, numbered, and dull. "Asset disclosure," Dana said, "under oath, within the statutory time frame." Ethan made a soft, scoffing sound. "I'm not stupid enough to leave a trail," he said. Marisol's foot brushed Sabrina's shin under the table, a tiny shove that said, "Do not react." Sabrina kept writing. She drew a line under Ethan's words and moved to the next item. Dana asked about the joint account. Paul responded with practiced confusion. "What joint account? My client has been separating finances for months." Sabrina looked up, and the truth came out before strategy could catch it. "He changed the access at 2:13 in the morning," she said. "He locked me out and updated the contact information." Paul's head tilted. Ethan's smile paused, then resumed, sharper. Dana's pen stopped. Marisol's heel tapped once, harder this time. Paul raised his hands as if Sabrina had just threatened violence. "Your Honor won't like that," he said to the mediator. "Harassing him with banking allegations and surveillance theories?" Ethan leaned forward. "See," he said, "this is what I've been dealing with." The mediator scribbled something and suggested a break. During the pause, Paul stepped into the hallway with his phone and returned with a new tone, quick and bureaucratic. "My client is requesting a temporary protective order," Paul said. "Limited contact. Communication through counsel only. Given today's statements, it's appropriate." Sabrina stared at the words as Dana repeated them, translating the legal phrasing into plain consequences. Ethan would get a court document that framed Sabrina as the problem. Dana asked for time to respond. Paul agreed with a shrug, like he'd offered a courtesy. The session ended without signatures. Ethan stood first, adjusted his cuffs, and spoke toward the mediator rather than Sabrina. "I'm trying to move on," he said. "I'd appreciate boundaries." Sabrina walked out with Marisol and Dana. In the courthouse corridor, her phone buzzed again, this time from HR. "Reminder, please be mindful of company image," the text read. Sabrina showed Marisol the screen. "Great," Sabrina said. "Now I have official paperwork proving I'm bad for the brand." Marisol didn't laugh. She guided Sabrina to a bench near the elevators and lowered her voice. "From now on, you don't say one word to him without a witness," she said. "Not a text, not a call, not a hallway comment." The elevator chimed. Ethan stepped out, saw them, and walked straight toward their bench as Marisol kept talking. Sabrina stayed seated when Ethan walked toward the bench, but her hand closed around the spiral notebook like it could keep him at a distance. Marisol stepped forward, turning her shoulder so Ethan had to address her first. "Communication through counsel, Ethan." Ethan stopped close enough that Sabrina caught the faint scent of cologne he wore to meetings. He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. His voice dropped, aimed at Sabrina as if Marisol were a chair. You want to dig? I can make you lose that job a lot faster than you can find anything. Sabrina moved her feet back under the bench, a small retreat that kept her from having to stand. Sabrina wrote his words in her notebook. Marisol didn't budge. Back up, she said. If you have something to say, you say it to Dana. Ethan's mouth twitched, annoyed that the hallway had rules. He lifted his hands in a mock surrender, then leaned closer anyway, careful to keep the gap that would look harmless on a security camera. Tell her to stop, he murmured. This doesn't end well for you. A clerk walked by with files, and Ethan straightened immediately, smiling at the clerk like he'd been caught helping. Then he turned and headed for the exit, taking his time. Marisol waited until he was gone. That was the friendly version, she said. Sabrina opened her email on her phone. A message from Alan Pierce sat at the top, marked urgent. She forwarded it to Dana and Marisol, then read it herself, twice. Alan had mapped a chain of transactions that didn't sit in one account long enough to feel real. Payments to a consulting LLC with a bland name, transfers that bounced through 2 intermediaries, a pattern that suggested someone was trying to make money look like expenses, then make expenses vanish. Marisol read over Sabrina's shoulder. Shell company, Marisol said, and money going out. It's not complete, Alan had written. It's a route, not a confession. Dana called 10 minutes later. Don't text him. Don't pick up calls. We can ask the court to compel disclosure, but we need to be clean. Sabrina answered with the only thing she could offer. I'm clean. That afternoon, Marisol met Sabrina again, this time in the parking garage because Sabrina didn't want the cafe's staff to remember her face. Marisol stood beside Sabrina's car and laid out the options like she was labeling evidence bags. Option A, Marisol said. You sign his fast settlement. You get peace on paper. You probably get less than you're owed, and his post stays out there in people's heads, even if he deletes it. Sabrina kept her keys in her palm, pressing the metal teeth against her skin. Option B, Marisol continued. We go deep. Motions, subpoenas, forensic tracing. If he's hiding money offshore, this can turn into something bigger than a divorce. He'll get meaner. He'll get louder. And he'll blame you for every consequence. Sabrina nodded once. It wasn't agreement. You've been silent too long, Marisol said. Silence doesn't make him kinder, it just gives him space. Sabrina drove home and opened the storage bin she'd been avoiding. The label on the lid said, Winter Sweaters, which was a lie she'd told herself when she packed it. Under a scarf and a stack of mailers was a small USB drive with a faded piece of tape. Q4 payroll. Ethan had called it trash when she'd asked him what it was. Sabrina set it on the table, opened her laptop, and plugged it in. A folder popped up with exports from accounting software, PDFs, CSVs, and an email archive file. She clicked through quickly, not reading like a gossip, reading like a compliance report. Vendor payments, wire templates, reconciliation notes, more subject lines stamped with INTL codes. Sabrina picked up the USB between 2 fingers. He called this trash, she said aloud to nobody. That man has an eye for value. She copied the folder to her hard drive, zipped it, and attached it to an email for Alan. Then she forwarded the same file to Dana, adding a short message. Found on old USB, origin unknown. Please advise chain of custody. Dana responded almost immediately. Do not touch Ethan. Do not mention the drive. Bring it to my office. Marisol texted a single line. Submit the motion tonight. Sabrina opened the court portal Dana had sent, filled in the required fields, and uploaded the supporting documents. Her cursor hovered over the final button. She thought about option A, the version of her life where she swallowed a lie and called it closure. Then she clicked. The page refreshed, and a small loading circle began to spin, counting percentages like it was taking its time on purpose. The upload finally completed at 98%, as if the system enjoyed suspense. Sabrina refreshed the page and got a confirmation number. She screenshot it, forwarded it to Dana Klein, and unplugged the USB drive. She slid it into a sandwich bag and wrote the date on the plastic with a pen, the way she labeled everything now. Dana called the next morning. "We got a small win," Dana said. "The court granted limited preservation. He can't shred or delete, and he has to respond within the time frame." "How much time?" Sabrina asked. "Days, not weeks," Dana said. "It's fragile. He'll fight it, but it puts him on a clock." Sabrina thanked her and drove to work. The building lobby was the same, but people moved around her differently, like she was an obstacle they didn't want to touch. At her desk, she found another calendar invite from HR. This time it included an agenda line: check-in. In the HR office, the manager kept her voice neutral and her hands folded. "We'll be monitoring the situation," she said. "We're not taking action against you, but we need to manage risk." "Meaning what?" Sabrina asked. "It means we're moving you off the high-visibility project for now," the manager said. "Nothing punitive. It's temporary." Sabrina nodded. She asked for the change in writing. The manager said they'd send an email summary. Sabrina stood, thanked her, and left without arguing. The project mattered, but the pattern mattered more. Back at her desk, a message came through from a woman who'd laughed at Ethan's post in the comments 2 days earlier. The tone had changed from bold to cautious. "Hey, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have jumped in. Is any of it true?" Sabrina read it once and didn't respond. She saved a screenshot, filed it with the others, and returned to work. A little later, she forwarded the message to a personal folder labeled Social Fallout, then closed it. She didn't need a debate. She needed a record. At noon, Alan Pierce called with an update that sounded like it had been written in plain, hard math. "I found the loop," he said. "It runs through a shell company. The trail suggests funds moving out, but this is still a map, not a signed confession." "What makes it heavier?" Sabrina asked. "A statement with a signature or a confirmation email tied to a wire," Alan said. "Something he can't shrug off as theory. A bank record that shows authorization helps. A vendor acknowledgement helps. Anything that ties the code to him." Sabrina wrote it down and thanked him. When she ended the call, she checked her calendar to see what Dana had scheduled for the next filing. A new entry sat there that she hadn't created. Meeting, bank. It was set for the following morning at 9 a.m., with no location and no invitees. Sabrina clicked into the details. The creator field showed an old synced account name she hadn't used since the marriage. She removed the event, changed her calendar permissions, and logged out of any account she didn't recognize. Then she changed her passwords again, even though she'd changed them last week. That evening, she came home to her apartment and found an envelope on the floor outside her door. No stamp. No return address. Just her name printed in block letters that looked careful, like someone wanted it to appear calm. Sabrina picked it up with 2 fingers and brought it to the kitchen table. She opened it and pulled out a printed copy of Ethan's post, full color, comments included, as if it belonged in a scrapbook. A single line was written across the bottom in black ink. "Sign for peace." Sabrina stared at it, then turned the page over, checking for anything else. Nothing. She set the printout beside her laptop and watched her hands move the way they always did when she handled the compliance issue. Document, preserve, escalate. "He printed it," she murmured, more to the room than to herself, "because he thinks paper is more trustworthy than the internet." She slid the envelope and printout into another plastic bag, sealed it, and labeled it with the time. Then she texted Marisol Vega a photo. Marisol replied a minute later, "Do not engage." "Bring it to Dana." Sabrina placed the bag in a drawer with the USB and closed it. Her phone rang before she could step away. Unknown number. She let it ring once, twice, then answered with a steady voice. "Hello?" Breathing filled the line, slow and close, like the caller was holding the phone against their mouth. Sabrina didn't speak again. The breathing continued, then a whisper cut through it. "Stop." Sabrina stayed where she was, phone pressed to her ear, listening as the line held on without another word. The call ended without a click. It simply stopped. Sabrina held the phone a second longer, then set it on the table beside the sealed evidence bags. She opened her notes app, typed the time, the unknown number, and the single word she'd heard. Then she emailed Dana and Marisol. Unknown caller. Whispered, stop. Logged at 9:42 p.m. She locked her screen, washed her hands, and checked her door chain twice. No speeches, no tears, just the routine of someone filing a report on her own life. Then she shut her laptop, placed the USB in the bag, and set alarms. By morning, her inbox was already crowded. Dana's subject line sat at the top. Emergency hearing moved up. Sabrina read it at her desk in the corner, where the supply cabinet hummed like a roommate. Ethan claims you're destroying evidence, Dana wrote. Judge set a hearing on preservation and disclosures for tomorrow. We must file our document list today. Sabrina forwarded the email to Marisol, then printed it, because paper had become her only reliable witness. HR walked past, slowed, and kept going. Sabrina didn't chase them. She opened her calendar and cleared the day. Her phone buzzed again, non-stop. At 10:03, an email arrived from Ethan's address, copied to a chain that included managers she barely knew. Subject: clarification. The body was short, polished, and poisonous. Sabrina has taken financial files without permission, it read. She's using them to pressure a settlement and damage my business. A few co-workers replied all with awkward disclaimers, as if they'd been assigned a moral quiz. One wrote, hoping for a peaceful resolution. Sabrina saved the email, exported it as a PDF, and forwarded it to Dana. Then she asked IT to preserve the thread. IT logged a number and promised retention through counsel. Marisol called during Sabrina's lunch break. She didn't ask how Sabrina felt. You respond to nothing, she said. Not his email, not the comments, not coworkers fishing for details. Screenshot, save, and send to Dana. Sabrina walked to the stairwell to take the call away from desks. The court wants a list of every file you've touched, Marisol added. Today. If you miss it, he'll paint you as reckless. Sabrina opened her laptop and began building the list. Posts, bank alerts, the USB, Allen's reports, the envelope. She time-stamped entries and attached screenshots, keeping names and dates consistent for court. At 3:40, Sabrina walked to the parking garage with a folder under her arm. Halfway down the row, she noticed a man near her car, phone held low, camera pointed at her license plate. When she stepped closer, he lifted the phone to his ear and started talking as if he'd been mid-call the whole time. He didn't look at her. He drifted toward the stairwell, still speaking, then disappeared. Sabrina took a photo of his back before he turned the corner. She wrote the time in her notebook and drove out slowly, checking mirrors twice. Her hands stayed steady. Dana called after hours while Sabrina sat at her kitchen table with the document list open. Dana's tone was clipped. He's pushing a narrative that you're leaking financial data, she said. If he sells it, the judge can order you to surrender devices or restrict access to records to prevent spoliation. Sabrina stared at her laptop, then began adding serial numbers. Phone model, laptop ID, external drive, the USB bagged in a drawer. She scanned the envelope printout, saved it to a secure folder, and emailed Dana the inventory. Marisol replied with one line, "Do not miss the deadline." The next morning, Marisol met Sabrina outside the courthouse parking lot and walked her through what to bring. Dana had added a page titled Proposed Protective Measures, listing devices, accounts, and anything that could store files. Sabrina read down the list and saw her home router included, like the court planned to repossess her internet. She looked at Marisol. He wants my router too, so he can check if I'm breathing on Wi-Fi? Marisol kept moving. Don't be cute in front of the judge, she said. Sabrina tucked the papers into her folder and followed, phone on silent all day. The courthouse lobby was packed. Sabrina and Marisol cleared security and headed for the division hallway, Dana's folder pressed against Sabrina's ribs. A court clerk caught up, breathless, and handed Marisol a stapled packet with fresh signatures. Emergency request filed this morning, the clerk said. Marisol skimmed the first page and swore under her breath. She grabbed Sabrina's elbow and steered her toward a wall. Don't look at him, Marisol said. Sabrina kept her eyes on the packet as footsteps approached from the far end. Ethan's voice carried before his face appeared, and then he was walking straight at them. Marisol caught Sabrina's sleeve before Ethan reached them. Dana Klein was already in the hallway, folder open, and she stepped between Sabrina and Ethan like she was blocking a door. Mr. Caldwell, through counsel. Ethan smiled at Dana as if they were colleagues. Of course. I'm just here to protect myself. Dana didn't answer. She guided Sabrina and Marisol toward the courtroom doors while a clerk collected the packet Ethan had filed. The hearing itself was short on drama and long on procedure. The judge set timelines, warned both sides about tampering, and scheduled follow-ups. Ethan's attorney pushed the idea that Sabrina had stolen business records. Dana pushed back with chain of custody notes, preservation orders, and the envelope left under Sabrina's door. Sabrina spoke only when asked, and even then she kept it to dates and actions. By the time they left, Dana's voice had that clipped tone she used when she wanted things done fast. Next step is evidence, not arguments, she said. Sabrina nodded and followed Marisol to the parking lot without looking for Ethan. Outside, Dana handed Sabrina a short checklist. Bring every device, don't delete anything, don't accept new invites. Sabrina photographed it, then photographed the hallway notice board, because she'd learned fax moved when nobody watched, and she wanted receipts. Alan Pierce's office appointment was already on the calendar, so Sabrina went straight there with a fresh folder and the USB sealed in plastic. Alan motioned her to a chair and asked for updates. Sabrina slid the printouts across his desk. The bank contact change at 2:13 a.m., the new device login, the fake calendar entry labeled Meeting Bank, and the INTL-coded auto emails from Ethan's accounting platform. Then she handed him the USB drive without unsealing it. Good, Alan said. He photographed the bag, logged the serial number, and copied the files to a secure drive while Sabrina watched his hands, not his face. He printed a few pages and drew boxes around reference numbers. Marisol joined by speakerphone from Dana's office. Walk me through it like I'm the judge, Marisol said. Alan didn't hesitate. The late-night login and the contact update are consistent with someone taking control of access, he said. The calendar insert suggests monitoring or intimidation. The INTL tags match a transfer workflow. Combined, it's a pattern of controlling information and moving funds. He pulled up a spreadsheet and sorted by date. A series of payments appeared, spaced almost evenly, each routed through the same bland LLC before disappearing. That's not panic hiding, Alan said. That's scheduled hiding. Sabrina leaned forward. The numbers were large enough to change a life, and routine enough to look boring on purpose. Where does it go? Marisol asked. Alan zoomed in on one line and tapped the destination code. Offshore, he said. Sabrina looked at the paper stack, then at the next page, as if there might be a more normal word waiting there. I used to think far was flying to Denver, she said. Turns out he goes farther. Marisol exhaled once, then got practical. Can we use this in court? She asked. It's persuasive, Alan said. It's not a hammer, yet. We need something that ties authorization to Ethan. A confirmation email. A signed statement. Bank records with his signature. Or a participant who can authenticate how these were done. Sabrina opened her laptop and pulled up the list Dana wanted for filings. What documents existed, where they came from, and who had touched them. Alan dictated wording while Sabrina typed. Marisol corrected terms when they drifted into accountant shorthand. While Sabrina typed, Marisol's phone chimed on the speaker line. Marisol went still for a beat, then spoke carefully. I just got a message, Marisol said, from someone who says they worked on Ethan's books. Alan looked up. What do they want? Marisol read it aloud. I don't want to be involved, but I also don't want to be blamed. Sabrina didn't ask for a name. She didn't ask for loyalty. She turned her laptop so Alan could see the draft chain of custody language and kept her voice level. I don't need you to believe me, Sabrina said, speaking toward the phone as if the other person could hear through it. I need you to tell the truth. Marisol typed back while Alan continued sorting files. The reply came fast. A number to call, no name attached. Marisol dialed, then tapped speaker. A shaky voice answered. Hello? Marisol kept her tone steady. This is Marisol Vega. You reached out about Ethan Caldwell. A pause. I don't want trouble, the voice said. I've got enough of that. What do you have? Marisol asked. The breath on the line hitched, then steadied. I have emails, the voice said. And I have a recording. He talked about cleaning the money. Marisol ended the call with the accountant's number saved, then looked at Sabrina across Alan Pierce's desk. Sabrina kept her hands flat on the laptop lid, waiting for the room to stop spinning on new information. Alan printed a chain of custody form and slid it over. No one downloads anything and forwards it like gossip, Alan said. We get originals, metadata, and a clear path. Marisol texted the number, a request for a quick private meeting at Dana Klein's office. The reply came back in minutes. I can be there at 6. At Dana's office that evening, Sabrina signed 2 authorizations with a pen that kept skipping, as if even the ink wanted to hesitate. Dana stapled them to a motion for expanded disclosure and pointed at the court's latest order. Your deadline is Thursday at noon, Dana said. If he lies under oath, sanctions are real. If we miss a filing, the judge will assume we're sloppy. Sabrina initialed every page and watched Dana scan them into a secure portal. Marisol set a legal pad on the table and started a checklist, treating the case like a project plan that couldn't fail. The accountant arrived exactly at 6, a woman named Paige Morales with tired eyes and a tote bag that looked heavier than it should. She didn't sit until Dana confirmed who was present and what was being recorded in notes. I'm not here to save anyone, Paige said. I just don't want him pinning it on me. Marisol asked questions like she was building a bridge. Where are the emails stored? Are they in your original inbox? Can you forward them without altering headers? When did you first receive the wire confirmations? Paige answered in short bursts, then handed over a thumb drive sealed in an evidence envelope, already dated and signed. Dana didn't play the recording right away. She made Paige email the files to a secure address first, then had Marisol print the message headers. Only after that did Dana open a laptop and plug in a speaker. Just enough to identify the voice, Dana said. A man's voice filled the room. Ethan's, casual like he was ordering lunch. Run it through the consulting line, he said. If it looks like payroll, it doesn't raise eyebrows. Paige's voice came faintly after. That's not payroll. Ethan sighed. I'm not asking you to be sentimental. I'm asking you to make it clean. Sabrina kept her eyes on Dana's notepad while the audio ran, as if looking at Ethan's name might summon him into the room. The words weren't dramatic, they were practical, which made them worse. Dana paused the file and looked at Sabrina. Is that him? Sabrina nodded. Her phone buzzed with a work notification she didn't open. She remembered HR's careful phrasing, the stranger photographing her plate, the whisper on the line. Pushing this forward meant more of that, and louder. Letting it die meant Ethan's story would live unchallenged, polished, and convenient. Marisol leaned toward her. If you hesitate, he'll clean it again, she said. He's been doing it on a schedule. Dana slid the motion across the table. This asks for deeper disclosures and immediate preservation of electronic records, Dana said. Once it's filed, he can't pretend we're guessing. Sabrina picked up the pen. For a second, she held it above the signature line, then signed in one steady stroke. He said he wouldn't leave a trace, she said, almost to herself. So we just turn on the lights. Dana didn't smile, but her shoulders loosened as she gathered the packet. Paige stayed long enough to write a sworn statement about how she obtained the emails and why she started recording calls. Marisol photographed every page before Dana took it to the scanner. Alan sent a separate report summarizing the offshore pattern, stripped of opinions and packed with reference numbers. Dana compiled it all into a filing bundle and added a cover sheet listing exhibits. Outside, Miami traffic pressed toward rush hour. Sabrina carried the evidence envelope in her bag and kept her phone face down. Marisol walked beside her, already drafting a follow-up request to compel bank records. "We file, then we breathe," Marisol said. Sabrina didn't answer. She kept walking. They reached the clerk's filing window with minutes to spare. Dana slid the packet through the slot while Sabrina held Paige's envelope and the bagged USB, waiting for instructions. The clerk stamped the cover sheet, flipped pages, and asked for an extra copy. Dana produced it without looking. Her phone buzzed and she glanced at the screen, then turned it toward Marisol. "They moved the hearing," Dana said. "Tomorrow morning." Sabrina tightened her grip on the envelope as the clerk reached out for the next exhibit and Sabrina started to pass it over. By 8:30 a.m., Sabrina and Marisol were back in the Miami-Dade courthouse, folders pressed flat against their sides. Dana Klein met them near the courtroom doors and spoke without stopping her stride. "Answer only what you're asked," she said. "Let him perform." The clerk called names. Sabrina walked to the counsel table, set her bag down, and kept both hands visible. Ethan Caldwell arrived a minute later in a crisp shirt, nodding at people like he belonged there. He didn't glance at Sabrina until he sat. Then he gave her a look that said he'd slept fine. When the judge entered, Ethan stood quickly, shoulders squared, the picture of restraint. His attorney, Paul Reddick, opened with a calm voice and a rehearsed story. "My client is being extorted," Paul said. "Ms. Carpenter obtained business records improperly and is using them to force an inflated settlement." Ethan nodded at the word extorted, as if it hurt to hear it said aloud. When Dana asked to respond, Ethan leaned forward first. "I've tried to keep this private," Ethan said. "I just want to move on." "She's obsessed with my money." "She's digging through my business and painting me as some criminal because she didn't get what she wanted." Sabrina wrote each claim in her notebook, keeping her pen moving so her face didn't have to. Paul turned his attention to the USB and the emails Paige Morales had provided. He held up a plastic bag like it was contaminated. "This drive appeared out of nowhere," Paul said. "No warrant, no consent, no verification? And these emails? Forwarded, printed, handled by who knows how many people." Dana slid the chain of custody forms across the table. The judge looked at them, then looked at Sabrina. "Ms. Carpenter, did you access Mr. Caldwell's accounts without authorization?" the judge asked. Sabrina kept her voice even. "No." Paul stepped in before the next question landed. "She admits she has his financial files," Paul said. "She admits she has a recording." "This is exactly why we asked for restrictions," Dana objected, and the judge held up a hand. "I'm not ruling on authenticity today," the judge said. "I'm ruling on preservation and conduct." The judge ordered Ethan to preserve business and personal financial records and set a disclosure deadline with consequences for omissions. Then the judge turned to Sabrina. "To prevent further dispute, you will not access any additional records belonging to Mr. Caldwell's business," the judge said. "You will provide a copy of the USB to opposing counsel through your attorney. Your phone and laptop will be made available for a limited forensic review if necessary." Dana's jaw tightened once, then she nodded. Sabrina felt the weight of her phone in her bag like it had become evidence on its own. A bailiff handed Dana a one-page receipt form and pointed toward a side desk. Dana copied the USB's exhibit number, then turned to Sabrina. "Don't touch anything else," Dana said. Sabrina nodded. The bailiff asked for Sabrina's laptop serial number. Sabrina read it off the sticker, and Dana wrote it down. Paul watched with a satisfied half smile, like he'd just won a small prize. Ethan whispered to Paul and laughed once, then caught the judge's clerk watching and straightened his tie, as if the hearing had been for his benefit. In the hallway afterward, Ethan walked past them with Paul, speaking just loud enough for a bailiff to hear. "See," Ethan said, "I told you she was doing shady things." Marisol waited until he was out of earshot. "At least now the court officially wants you to not read your ex's emails," she said. Sabrina almost smiled, then stopped herself and kept walking. Outside the courthouse doors, her phone vibrated nonstop. Dana took it from her hands for a second, turned the screen away, and pointed to the steps. "Don't look," Dana said. We file everything the right way, fast. He'll try to bury it or blame you for it. A new message slid onto Sabrina's lock screen from HR. Please step away from the Horizon project until further notice. Marisol saw it and made a small sound that wasn't surprise. Ethan, meanwhile, had already posted again. A coworker sent Sabrina a screenshot without a caption. Ethan's status sat under his smiling headshot, something about the court finally seeing the truth. Sabrina saved the image, then turned her phone off and handed it back to Dana. Dana started down the steps, talking as she walked. We need the emails in original format, she said. We need the recording authenticated. We need bank records with signatures. And we need it all before he rearranges the pieces. Sabrina followed, envelope of exhibits tucked under her arm, eyes on Dana's back, her thumb resting on her phone without unlocking it. Marisol dropped Sabrina at her apartment with a list of do-nots and a sealed evidence envelope. Sabrina carried her laptop like it might set off alarms. The court's order sat in her bag, folded twice, telling her what she could not touch, could not open, could not access. She set her phone on the counter, powered it down, then turned it back on, only to forward one more screenshot to Dana Klein. After that, she treated the device like a coworker under investigation. Present, documented, and not trusted. The next morning, HR sent an email that sounded friendly enough to frame. We're going to keep you off Horizon until this resolves, it read, followed by a reminder about confidentiality. Sabrina replied with a single sentence, asking for confirmation that the change was temporary, then saved the thread to her personal archive. At her new desk corner, a few people avoided her eyes. One person offered a tight smile and said nothing. Another walked by and whispered, "Hang in there," like she'd been diagnosed. By noon, Ethan's story had grown legs. Someone in Sabrina's extended friend group posted a vague status about women who trap men for money, and 3 people liked it. A neighbor in her old building unfollowed her, then followed Ethan. A coworker sent Sabrina a link to a comment thread where strangers debated whether she'd planted a recording to blackmail him. Sabrina didn't answer any of it. She took screenshots, labeled them by date, and dropped them into a folder. Alan Pierce called at 2:15. "It's moving," he said. "What's moving?" Sabrina asked. "The money trail. The shell company's pattern changed overnight. New intermediaries, different descriptions, same cadence." "So he's shifting it," Marisol said, joining the call from Dana's office. "Yes," Alan said. "Without a stronger court order, tracing will slow. He's buying time." Marisol swore softly, then switched topics. "Paige just texted me," she said. Sabrina watched her calendar as if it could help. "She's scared," Marisol continued. "She says Ethan called her, then someone from his office showed up near her kid's school pickup. She wants out." Dana's voice cut in. She'd been listening. "We're filing for witness protection measures," Dana said. "Not Hollywood, just sealing her name where we can and limiting disclosure." Marisol added, "Paige won't be in a hallway with him again. I'm requesting the court keep her contact info out of filings." Sabrina opened her email and searched for Paige's statement, then realized she couldn't access the secure portal without risking accusations. She put her hands flat on the desk and waited for instructions instead. Ethan texted at 4:06. He must have used a new number because it bypassed the filter Marisol had set up. "Sign it. No one's on your side." Sabrina stared at the message, then tapped 3 buttons: screenshot, save, upload. The cloud icon spun for a second and finished. Marisol called immediately after, as if she'd seen the upload notification. "Don't respond," Marisol said. "I didn't," Sabrina said. She turned the phone so Marisol could see the screenshot on video. "He's right about one thing," Sabrina said. "No one's on my side. Except the cloud." Marisol's mouth tightened, almost a smile. Then she shook it off. "Send it to Dana," she said. Sabrina forwarded it and watched the email leave her outbox. She set her phone down and opened the drawer where she'd kept the evidence bags. The envelope with Ethan's printed post stared back at her through plastic. She moved it to the back, then pulled Paige's sealed packet forward, keeping it separate. At 6:30, Dana called again. "Tomorrow is a key hearing," she said. If we don't present authenticated evidence the right way, they'll choke us with procedure. Sabrina wrote authenticated twice, then crossed one out because she didn't need emphasis, she needed order. Dana continued, "Bring the originals. Bring your inventory list. Do not bring your work laptop unless I tell you. We'll arrange transfer through counsel." Sabrina answered with a quick, "Understood," and ended the call. She didn't sit down. She didn't pace. She opened her filing box and pulled out the first printed email chain Alan had flagged, the one with the INTL subject code, and the timestamp that matched the 2:13 a.m. contact change. She slipped it into a manila folder, then reached for the next page. She opened Paige's envelope only enough to confirm the seal number Dana had logged, then closed it again. She set the USB bag beside it, lined up the printed posts, and snapped photos of the arrangement. On her stove clock, 11:47 blinked. She slid the folder into her tote and zipped it halfway. Her keys stayed in her pocket. A knock hit her door, sharp and deliberate, before she could slide the folder closed. Someone knocked again, louder. Sabrina kept the folder in her hand and checked the peephole. A man in a county badge held a slim packet and a clipboard. "Ms. Carpenter?" he said. "Yes?" "I'm delivering a notice from the court. You're required to submit supplemental exhibits in the proper format by 4 p.m. today." He didn't step forward. He didn't ask questions. He handed her the packet, had her sign, and walked away before she could read the first page. Sabrina locked the door and called Marisol. "Don't do anything yourself," Marisol said. "I wasn't planning to," Sabrina replied. "Good. Scan the notice, email it to Dana, then pack your originals and drive straight to her office." Sabrina photographed each page, emailed it, and left the apartment with her tote held close like it contained glass. Dana's office was already busy. Marisol met her in the lobby, took the tote, and started sorting without asking permission. "New rule," Marisol said. "You don't touch a printer, you don't talk to clerks, you don't answer texts. You just verify dates when we ask." Sabrina sat at the conference table while Dana read the court notice and began rewriting their exhibit list to match the required format. The work was boring in the way disasters usually are. Page numbers, file names, headers, signatures, chain of custody labels. Marisol's phone rang and she stepped into the hallway. When she came back, she had a different posture. "Remember the teller you were decent to?" Marisol asked. "The one who couldn't print the change log," Sabrina said. "She found a supervisor who can tell us how to request it the right way," Marisol said. "Written request, notarized ID, and a subpoena reference number. She said the log exists. She just wasn't allowed to hand it over at the counter." Dana held out her hand. "Give me the branch address," Dana said. Marisol texted it over. Dana added it to a subpoena request, then assigned a courier run. A second call came in, this one from Sabrina's office number. She almost ignored it, but Marisol nodded at her. "It's your coworker, the one you covered for last quarter," Marisol said. Sabrina answered on speaker. "Hey, Sabrina," the coworker said. "I shouldn't be calling, but I pulled the access logs like you taught me. Your old synced account pinged your calendar from an IP we don't use here. I saved the report and emailed it to Marisol's address." "Thank you," Sabrina said. "Please don't put your name on anything you don't need to," Dana added, already typing. The coworker exhaled. "Understood. I'm not trying to be a hero. I just don't like bullies." They hung up. Dana printed the log and clipped it behind the screenshot of the fake meeting bank entry. Paige Morales arrived late afternoon, sunglasses on even in the lobby. She sat only after Dana shut the door. "He called me again," Paige said. "I didn't pick up." Marisol slid a form toward her. "This keeps your personal address off the public filing," Marisol said. "It's not perfect, but it helps." Paige signed. Then she opened her tote and produced a set of documents that looked like they'd been prepared by someone who'd spent the night choosing survival. "I pulled the original wire confirmations from the accounting system," Paige said. "Some have his digital signature stamp. Some have his approval email attached. I forwarded the raw emails to your secure address, headers intact." Dana checked the headers and nodded once. "That's what we needed," Dana said. Alan called while Dana scanned. He sounded tired, not worried. "Those confirmation numbers match the offshore route," he said. "It's consistent, and it's deliberate." Marisol stacked the growing pile of exhibits and stared at it. "He said he wouldn't leave a trace," Marisol said. "Did he think paperwork reproduces on its own?" Sabrina glanced at the stack. "At least we don't have to feed it," she said. Dana's phone buzzed with a message from the clerk's office, then another from opposing counsel. Dana didn't answer either one. She slid the final motion toward Sabrina. "Sign the verification page," Dana said. Sabrina signed, then stood as Dana placed the evidence envelope, the bank request draft, the access log, and Page's statement into one ordered bundle. Marisol slid a draft order across the table for Dana to sign and file, asking for deeper disclosures and temporary freezes if Ethan tried to move funds again. Dana initialed it, then texted a runner to take it downstairs before the clerk closed for the day. Dana looked up. "We have enough to break his story in front of the judge," she said. At 8:55 a.m., Sabrina sat at the counsel table with Dana Klein's binder open in front of her. Marisol stood behind the rail, phone off, watching the door. The exhibits were clipped, numbered, and boring in the only way that mattered. Ethan arrived with Paul Reddick, calm enough to greet the bailiff. He took his seat, folded his hands, and let his eyes slide to Sabrina for half a second. The look said she'd been warned. When the judge entered, Ethan leaned into his microphone before Paul could start. "Your Honor, I'm being dragged through this because she wants money," he said. "She married me for it, and now she's trying to punish me for not paying enough." Dana waited until the judge looked at her. "Ms. Klein?" the judge asked. "Mr. Caldwell is still refusing full disclosures," Dana said. "He produced partial statements, but the numbers don't match his own records. We're asking for compelled production and targeted preservation." Paul lifted a hand. "Your Honor, she's using stolen files," he said. "A thumb drive appears, and suddenly we're talking about international crime. This is a divorce, not a conspiracy." Dana slid a packet to the clerk. "These are not stolen," she said. "They're business communications produced through proper channels and authenticated by the custodian." The judge looked down, then up. "Mr. Reddick, do you dispute authenticity today?" Paul hesitated. "We dispute the context," he said. Dana stood, calm as if she were reading a receipt. "Exhibit 4 is Mr. Caldwell's approval email for a transfer routed through a shell entity. Exhibit 5 is the corresponding statement with his electronic signature. Exhibit 6 shows the same pattern repeating monthly." She then added Exhibit 7, the bank's changelog request with the timestamp, and Exhibit 8, the access report from Sabrina's workplace showing the calendar entry created from an outside IP. Dana didn't raise her voice. She simply asked why a man with nothing to hide needed 2:13 a.m. edits and a fake meeting called bank. And his disclosure totals kept changing too. Paul objected again, but the judge asked Ethan if he had produced the full log. Ethan answered through Paul, "Not yet." Ethan shifted in his chair. He laughed once, too short to sound real. "That's not what it looks like," he said. The judge raised a finger. "Answer through counsel," the judge said. Dana didn't press Ethan. She opened a new folder. "Exhibit 9 is an audio recording authenticated by the bookkeeper who made it," she said. "It captures Mr. Caldwell instructing her on how to make it clean and route funds so they won't appear as marital assets." Paul snapped up. "Objection," he said. "Hearsay. Improper." "Foundation is attached," Dana said, handing the clerk a certification. The judge listened to a short clip through the court speaker. Ethan's voice came out flat, practical, the voice Sabrina had heard at dinner tables. "Run it through consulting," the recording said. "If it looks like payroll, nobody asks questions." The room changed without anyone moving. Paul stopped flipping pages. Ethan stared at the table like he was waiting for it to stop. The judge set the pen down. "Mr. Caldwell, earlier you stated you're not stupid enough to leave a trail," the judge said. "That statement is now in the record." Sabrina looked at the exhibit list, eyes tracking line numbers the way she tracked audit findings. The judge continued. I am ordering immediate preservation of all financial records, digital and paper, the judge said. I'm authorizing a temporary freeze on identified accounts and transactions related to these transfers, pending further review. The judge glanced at the clerk. Prepare the order today. Paul stood halfway, then sat back down. Your Honor, this is extraordinary, he said. It is responsive, the judge replied. I'm also referring the materials presented today to the appropriate authorities for review. This court will not be used to conceal potential criminal conduct. Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. His face held a polite smile that didn't match his eyes. The judge called the next item on the docket, but a court officer stepped to Ethan's side and spoke low. Ethan nodded once. Dana leaned toward Sabrina. Back door, she said. Now! Marisol was already gathering papers. Sabrina slid her notebook into her bag, kept her eyes on Dana's shoulder, and followed them out before anyone could start asking questions. In the side corridor, Dana walked fast and spoke in short phrases. Do not answer anyone. Do not stop. Sabrina heard her name from somewhere behind them, then again, louder, as if the hallway itself had turned into a comment thread. Dana pushed through the door marked Employees Only, and Sabrina slipped after her, hands still wrapped around the folder as the door swung toward closed. Dana hustled Sabrina through the service corridor and out a side exit that smelled like copier toner. In the parking lot, Marisol handed her a paper bag with the court order and said, Straight home, no stops. I'm going, Sabrina said. She drove with the radio off, watching traffic lights and rearview mirrors. At her building, she waved at the doorman without slowing, rode the elevator alone, and let herself in. She locked the deadbolt, set her bag on the counter, and took off her shoes as if they were evidence too. Then she washed hands and checked the chain. She opened her laptop and logged into every account Ethan had ever known existed. Email first, then banking portals, then the password manager she'd installed after the first bank alert. Each reset required a code, and each code went to a phone number she confirmed twice. She turned off calendar sharing, removed the old synced account, and reviewed device sessions one by one. A tablet she didn't recognize appeared under recent logins. She clicked Sign Out, changed the security questions, and printed the confirmation page, sliding it into Dana's binder pocket she'd borrowed. Afterward, she restarted the laptop and phone. In the top drawer, she kept the new manila envelope where the missing tax folder used to be. It held replacement returns, updated statements, and the subpoena request for the bank change log, all copied from Dana's office scanner. Sabrina wrote 2026, January 3rd, on a label strip and stuck it on the tab. She added a second label for 2:13 a.m. alert and clipped it to the front. Not because it felt meaningful, but because it matched the evidence list. Her handwriting stayed small and even. She stacked the pages by date, punched holes, and slid them into a thin binder. The screenshots folder on her phone still carried Ethan's original post, the comments, and the laugh reacts from his relatives. She didn't delete it, and she didn't scroll. She connected a small encrypted drive Dana had given her and transferred the entire folder into a directory labeled Caldwell Defamation. The phone backup finished, and she removed the folder from the device, leaving only a single shortcut that pointed to the legal archive. When the screen stopped buzzing, she placed the phone face down beside the envelope, like a tool she'd finished using. She exported the call log and saved it with timestamps. Marisol's thread sat unread since the hearing, mostly short commands and checkmarks. Sabrina opened it and typed one sentence, then read it twice to make sure it wasn't an apology. Tonight, I'm not taking calls. If it's urgent, email me. She sent it before she could rephrase it into something softer. Marisol replied within seconds. Good. Sleep. Sabrina didn't answer. She set a glass of water on the table, plugged her charger in, and laid out clothes for the morning the way she used to before audits, neat and predictable. She set her phone to Do Not Disturb until noon. Before bed, she checked her email filters and found a junk message from her old building's management. Maintenance notice, camera service. The date was months old, but the subject felt current. Sabrina dragged it into the spam folder and watched it disappear. Maintenance, she said under her breath. Character. She emptied the trash, then updated her recovery email and removed any forwarding rules that didn't belong. A new device alert tried to pop up, then vanished after the changes took effect. She wrote that down anyway because patterns didn't need permission to repeat. The evidence bag sat on the counter, heavy. The next morning, she bought a new lock set at a hardware store and paid in cash. Back home, she watched a tutorial, then replaced the cylinder with a screwdriver borrowed from the front desk. The old lock came out in 4 minutes, which made her jaw tighten more than any courtroom comment. She put the old pieces in a plastic bag and labeled them, just in case. When the new deadbolt clicked into place, she tested it 3 times, then adjusted the strike plate until it caught cleanly. The door felt the same, but the terms had changed. For now. That evening, Sabrina stood with the new keys in her palm and the bolt turned from the interior side. She listened for footsteps in the hallway, heard none, and still checked the peephole before stepping back. Her phone vibrated on the console table, an unfamiliar number flashing. She watched it ring without moving. A second buzz followed with no voicemail. She didn't pick up. She kept her hand on the lock as if that contact mattered more than any call. When the phone lit again, she slid it farther away, keys clinking softly, and kept the bolt engaged all night. Dana called 2 days after the hearing, not to celebrate, but to relay what had already started moving without Sabrina's permission. They froze the accounts tied to the transfers, Dana said. Temporary, but effective. He can't shuffle funds while the court reviews the scope. Sabrina wrote the date on the label of a new folder and added a copy of the order behind it. What about the company? She asked. His partners didn't love learning about offshore routes in open court, Dana said. The board voted to suspend his management authority pending investigation. Someone else is running operations. Sabrina didn't answer. She opened her work laptop and filed the update in her case tracker the same way she tracked audit findings, line items, and timestamps. At the office, HR scheduled a status check with no apologies and no warmth. The manager slid a printed memo across the table. We're restoring you to Horizon, she said. Or, if you prefer, we can place you on a different program with the same pay and less visibility. I want Horizon, Sabrina said. The manager nodded as if it were a normal request, not a small return of oxygen. Back on the floor, people acted like the last few weeks had been a weather event. One coworker stopped near her desk and cleared his throat. I shouldn't have joked, he said, about the marriage strategy thing. Sabrina looked up once. Don't do it again, she said. He nodded fast and walked away, relieved to have a script. Later that afternoon, a vendor who had canceled sent a new email. Apologies for the delay. We'd like to reschedule. Sabrina accepted the invite, then saved the message. She didn't need proof they were fickle. She needed consistency for herself. Dana emailed the settlement draft on the defamation piece with a subject line that read like a warning label. The terms were plain. Ethan would remove the posts, stop repeating the claim, and issue a written correction that could be shown to employers and business contacts. There was also a damages amount, large enough to sting, plus attorney fees. Marisol called to make sure Sabrina read it. It's not a victory lap, Marisol said. It's a muzzle and a receipt. Sabrina forwarded the draft to her personal archive and replied to Dana with 2 questions, both about enforcement. The next morning, Ethan's profile looked different. The post was gone. Comments that had been sharp enough to cut were missing too, replaced by blank spaces and deleted tags. A few people who had laughed the loudest didn't message Sabrina at all. They just erased their own footprints and moved on. One woman from Sabrina's extended friend circle finally texted, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Sabrina didn't respond. She screenshot the message, filed it, and let it sit where it belonged, in a folder that didn't need her attention. A second message came from someone she barely knew, the kind of person who only appeared when drama felt safe. Are you okay? Sabrina replied once, Yes, I just need sleep, and I don't have to explain myself to the internet anymore. Marisol sent back a thumbs up in words. Good. Keep it that simple. The business fallout traveled faster than gossip. A colleague's spouse worked in logistics and mentioned, in passing, that Ethan's company had an emergency meeting and a new interim manager. Nobody said Ethan's name like a joke anymore. They said it the way people say, audit. Sabrina kept her head down and kept working, because her job had always been about rules and receipts. When coworkers asked, she gave them nothing they could repeat. Through counsel, she said, and went back to her screen. 2 weeks later, Dana asked Sabrina to come in to sign final paperwork. Dana's office looked the same, but the pile of exhibits on the table had thinned. "This resolves the defamation claim," Dana said. "It does not erase what happened. It stops him from selling it." Sabrina read each paragraph, initialed each page, and signed where Dana pointed. Marisol watched her pen. "You're getting better at asking for what you need," Marisol said. Sabrina capped the pen. "I'm getting better at not pretending I don't need anything," she said. Dana's phone rang as Sabrina stood to leave. Dana listened for 10 seconds, then looked up. "The damages payment is in escrow," Dana said. "You need to sign the release so it can be disbuster." Dana slid one more page across the table. Sabrina took the pen again and leaned over the signature line. As the ink touched paper, her phone lit with a local news alert about an internal meeting at Ethan's company, and Sabrina's hand kept moving as she signed. Escrow cleared on Friday. Dana emailed a receipt and a short reminder. Keep everything, even if you want to burn it. Sabrina printed the receipt, filed it, and went to the grocery store on the way home. Saturday, she cooked for the first time in weeks. Eggs, toast, whatever didn't require a decision. She washed the pan, set her phone on the counter, and didn't open any apps that showed tags. When it vibrated, she checked only the lock screen. Calendar, rent, therapy intake Tuesday 6 p.m. She tapped confirm and set it face down again. On Tuesday, she left work on time, which felt like a new habit. The therapist's office asked for paperwork and a card on file. Sabrina filled out forms, checked boxes, and wrote Ethan's name once, neatly, without adding a story. When the therapist offered water, Sabrina declined. "Anything you need from me today?" the therapist asked. "I need a plan," Sabrina said. "Then we'll start with routines and boundaries," the therapist said, and opened a notebook. Sabrina didn't describe her feelings. She described actions. The post, the bank alert at 2:13 a.m., the envelope under her door, the court order, the device list. The therapist nodded and wrote, like it was a case file. The next week, Marisol asked Sabrina to help with a short workshop at a community legal clinic. It wasn't a speech, just a handout and a table. Sabrina showed up with a folder labeled Records, 3 cheap binders, and a stack of printed checklists Dana had approved. A woman in line asked, "Does this actually matter? Screenshots? Timestamps?" "It matters when someone lies confidently," Sabrina said. Marisol added, "And they always lie confidently." They walked people through practical steps. Save the link, save the time, don't argue in comments, route communication through counsel, keep originals bagged. Sabrina demonstrated how to label documents by date instead of by emotion. Nobody clapped. People took notes and moved on, which felt like the right kind of success. Afterward, a coworker pulled Sabrina aside near the coffee machine at work. "My sister's ex is posting about her," he said, calling her unstable. "She's spiraling." Sabrina opened her contacts and sent him a number for a local legal aid hotline and the clinic schedule. "Tell her to stop replying," Sabrina said. "Tell her to save everything." He stared at the screen as if she'd handed him a map out of a maze. "Thanks," he said. "I didn't know what to do." "Most people don't," Sabrina said. That night, Marisol sent a draft flyer for the clinic. Sabrina corrected 2 lines, replaced "protect yourself" with "document everything," and emailed it back. Marisol called. "Look at you," Marisol said, "editing instead of disappearing." "I'm available until 8, Sabrina said. "After that, email." Marisol paused, then answered, "Deal." On Sundays, Sabrina meal prepped chicken and rice, packed lunches, and labeled containers with masking tape. She kept a small notebook by the fridge for appointment times and court deadlines that were still pending. When a neighbor mentioned a nasty Facebook post from her ex, Sabrina wrote down the name of Dana's recommended victim services advocate and handed over the number without commentary. The neighbor blinked, then said, "You make it sound manageable." "It's paperwork," Sabrina said. "Paperwork doesn't care who is charming." On Friday, she dropped a flash drive at Alan's office with the latest bank log and the escrow confirmation, then watched him stamp it. He didn't congratulate her. "Good record keeping," he said. "That helps in court." Days got simpler in small, measurable ways. She went to work, did her reviews, and left on time when she could. She ate real food. She replaced a light bulb the day it burned out instead of letting it flicker for a month. She stopped checking Ethan's profile, not because she forgave him, but because she didn't need updates to do her job. One Monday morning, right before a compliance meeting, Sabrina's phone started buzzing again. Rapid fire. Her stomach tightened out of reflex. Then she glanced at the screen. It was her own reminders stacking up. Submit quarterly training, confirm therapist appointment, pay car insurance, send Marisol the revised handout, update passwords. She let the notifications roll, watched them pile, and didn't swipe into any social app. A junior analyst walked by and asked, "You good?" Sabrina nodded once. "Just popular with my calendar," she said. She opened the password reminder and set it for the first of every month. The text stared back. Update passwords, monthly. Sabrina tilted the screen toward herself and gave it a small, dry nod. "Yeah," she said. "Somebody needs scheduled maintenance." She locked the phone, set it on her desk, stood up, and walked toward the break room for coffee while the meeting invite timer kept counting down.